Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the ACLU of Utah. My name is Brittany Nystrom. I'm the Executive Director of the ACLU of Utah. The lawsuit we filed this morning is an important case with both local and national implications. Before I introduce the lead attorneys on the case, I wanted to provide some context for this litigation. First of all, I wanted to discuss what is ICE. ICE is the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency. It is located within the United States Department of Homeland Security, and it is a federal law enforcement agency. What is their role? They are charged with enforcing civil immigration laws within the interior of the United States. They're charged with carrying out detention operations for those held in immigration custody, charging immigrants considered deportable in immigration court, and effectuating deportations. What are the U.S. Marshals? The U.S. Marshals are also a federal police force. They serve open federal criminal warrants and provide protection services in federal courthouses. Under President Obama, immigration enforcement operations were prioritized with the recognition that there were limits on the manpower and the resources needed to apprehend, detain, and deport the estimated 11 million individuals living in the United States without valid immigration status. The Trump administration discarded this approach through executive order a few weeks after taking office. What resulted is an immigration enforcement approach that is essentially transformed anyone without immigration status into a priority for deportation. In February of 2017, then Press Secretary Sean Spicer referred to this approach as, quote, taking the shackles off ICE so that they could conduct more arrests. This new era of unprioritized immigration enforcement has led to both a jump in the numbers of immigration arrests of individuals with no criminal history and a sharp drop in reporting of crime from Latinos in numerous cities nationwide where immigrants are terrified to even seek help. Here in Utah, Salt Lake City Police Chief Mike Brown noted this trend last month. He stated that undocumented immigrants have receded into the shadows for fear of being deported, and that reports of crime from Latinos in Salt Lake City have fallen severely. As made clear by Chief Brown's remarks, it is not only immigrant advocates or immigrant communities who are recognizing the aggressive new attitude of ICE and the consequences. The effects of this shift in immigration enforcement strategy on one Utah family are on display here today. These families and their young children are now understandably terrified by police. The children may never go up to a police officer even if in danger and needing help. And these children are U.S. citizens. This is not normal. This is not lawful. This is not right. The immigration tactics you will hear described this morning not only terrorized this family and others in the immigrant community, but they have undone years of work building safer communities and promoting community policing. I'm pleased to introduce the legal director of the ACLU of Utah, John Mejia, to provide additional comments on this litigation.
Good morning. We are here this morning because we have filed a lawsuit seeking accountability for horrifying actions by federal agents who are supposed to be ensuring the rights and immunities of all people within the United States, and instead decided that they would take tactics of intimidation and fear against the family. We are suing today agents from ICE and from the U.S. Marshals for actions taken during repeated SWAT-style home raids taken in their home during April of 2017. The plaintiffs are 5 adults and 4 small children from one family. They were targeted by 2 raids by at least 10 federal agents each time. And each time the agents were dressed in military-style gear, carrying assault-style weapons. We allege in our lawsuit that agents from ICE and the U.S. Marshals forcibly entered and ransacked their homes, threatened to take their children away, and arrested the children's grandmother. We allege that the next day, despite knowing that there were only small children and harmless adults in the house, they came back with even more force the next day. And we filed the lawsuit, but I'll just go through some of the more disturbing allegations that we've made. We allege that they entered twice without receiving permission or producing a warrant. When the family members asked for a warrant, they responded that they didn't need one. And when the family kept on insisting, the agents insisted that the family watched too much Univision. During the first raid, agents separated the small children from their grandmother and forced the children to sit outside in cold weather without proper clothing or shoes for a long time. The agents threatened that they would take the children away to DCFS if the family did not cooperate. Despite confirming that none of the family member, a family member had no criminal record, the grandmother, the agents arrested her in front of her grandchildren in retaliation for her children not providing information about another family member. We allege the agents ransacked the family's apartment, throwing clothes and bedding everywhere, breaking closet doors off hinges, and taking $3,000 that they found in the apartment. After the agents battered the second raid, the family had to use a couch to prop open the broken door for the rest of the night. The agents at the end of all of this told the family that they couldn't win a legal challenge against ICE because of Trump's new law. The lawsuit asserts violations of the plaintiff's constitutional rights, privileges secured by the Fourth Amendment of the U.S., among other things. We think that this is a very important lawsuit because we are standing up for a family who has been subjected to horrible practices, and we believe that there needs to be accountability for this. So I'm going to introduce now my co-counsel, Starling Marshall from Covington and Burling, LLP, which is a national and international law firm, so that she can discuss her firm's involvement.
Good morning. Covington is extremely proud to be partnering with the ACLU of Utah and the ACLU Immigrants Rights Project on this case. Covington has a long history of supporting and litigating civil rights lawsuits. I've been involved personally in immigration lawsuits since the Bush administration, and I do find these particular allegations extremely egregious. Although these lawsuits are not uncommon, we don't know how many times a day these allegations or these enforcement tactics are actually used against these communities, because understandably, people with precarious immigration status are often terrified to come forward. And I believe that these officers preyed on that fact, thinking they would never have to be held accountable for their actions because these people would be voiceless. And so I am proud that the ACLU of Utah, that the Immigrants Rights Project, and that Covington and Burling can give voice to these allegations and can seek justice for these clients. We have alleged, again, Fourth Amendment violations, constitutional violations that are, as I said, egregious. We are seeking justice against the individual officers through Bivens, which is the mechanism through which individuals may seek justice against the individual officers where there were constitutional violations. However, the family is very clear that what they're really seeking with this lawsuit is to try to ensure that this will not happen to other families, and especially to other children. What really struck me particularly about this case is that the officers, after finding 4 small children in the house being babysat by their grandmother the first time, came back the second time in the middle of the night, knowing there were small children in the apartment, battered down the door with a battering ram, entered without turning on lights. The children were sleeping with their mother in the back bedroom and were awoken by assault weapons being shoved in their face. After, again, being on notice that there were small children in the house, these tactics are really shocking. So So we're proud to bring this lawsuit today, and we look forward to getting justice for our clients. Did you want to speak? Okay.
Yeah. And we're happy to take questions at this time if anyone has questions for anyone of the lawyers on the case.
How many similar lawsuits has the ACLU filed around the country? I know this is obviously not just unique to Utah. Do you know how many there are?
I don't have an exact count. I can tell you that the Immigrants' Rights Project, who is co-counsel on this case, is actively standing up for non-citizens and citizens alike who are the subject of constitutional abuses in the course of immigration enforcement actions. There's some litigation going on right now about the status of DACA. There have been other cases brought regarding immigration enforcement tactics. I don't know the number. It's also possible that different ACLU affiliates have brought even more litigation on their own without the assistance of the Immigrants' Rights Project. And in addition to that, there are several other organizations who have sued ICE and CBP, which is another component of the Department of Homeland Security, for the way in which they carry out immigration enforcement.
Is this the first one that the ACLU of Utah has filed since the Trump administration?
Yes.
Over the tactics? Okay.
Yes.
And what happened to the grandmother in the case? Was she arrested and deported, or take us through what happened after that night?
She is in deportation proceedings. That
Was
she,
it-
Yeah,
that she is no longer incarcerated, but she is in deportation proceedings.
Yeah, she was taken to a county jail that night and then later transferred to Colorado and then has since been released.
How long did she remain in custody before she was released?
About a month? Yeah, about a month. Yeah,
Yeah, around
I
there,
think so.
a
Yeah.
couple of weeks maybe.
Mhm.
Has she been able to reunite with her family while she awaits the deportation proceedings?
Yes, she was released on bail, so she is with her family, yes.
And she was not arrested for any suspected state or federal crime. She was,
Was she just arrested for being out of status or because of immigration
Yeah,
status?
she was
Yes.
apprehended based on the immigration charges and taken into immigration custody, which is a civil system.
Right. And to clarify, she didn't have any state or federal criminal, because like before with Obama, they focused on people with extra, yeah.
That's right. Under the Obama administration, ICE was directed to prioritize their enforcement for individuals with criminal backgrounds. This grandmother in our case filed this morning, they checked her fingerprints on the scene, recognized that she had no criminal activity associated with her, nonetheless apprehended her and placed her into immigration custody.
Are the other members of the family all U.S. citizens or green card holders, or what are their status?
We have 4 small children who are our clients who are United States citizens. And then we have 4 other adults who are currently, they have DACA. So that's their immigration status.
So the grandmother, are they the
They're the
of-
children of the, right, the grandmother was arrested, then her 4 children and daughter-in-law, and then the 3rd generation are citizens, yeah.
And where are they from originally?
They're from Mexico.
What kind of evidence is there that this happened the way they say it happened? Video, other witnesses, we just have their word, or what do you have?
First of all, I think that if you take a look at the complaint, which I know we're going to make available to you, you'll see that the allegations are quite detailed. There were many, and as you'll see, we have many plaintiffs in this case, so many witnesses to the events. I think the length and the specificity of the complaint show you how these actions were really burned into their mind. They're quite traumatic. In terms of what other evidence, I think that will, come out over the course of the case, but I'm not really free to discuss all of that right now.
I see you mentioned one particular agent in here, Jordan Reddish. Is he a Marshal or ICE agent?
he's ICE.
ICE. And why did you single him out?
We don't know, at this point, we're not sure about the identity, the names of the other people who were there. He happened to be wearing his jacket.
He
with
gave
his
his,
name on it,
and he
and
gave
us
his
card.
business card to one of our clients, so he's the only one who identified himself by name.
It's not necessarily that he was the captain or the most egregious or anything, he just the one name, or was he, do you also believe he kind of led the charge?
If you look through the complaint, you'll see that, that there are others that we know specific action, they were taking specific actions, but we just don't know their names. That's quite typical in cases like this because they don't, leave calling cards, but that will be sought, sussed out in discovery. But you can see, if you go through the complaint, that there are specific things that Reddish did that others didn't do, but again, there's things that other officers did that Reddish didn't do.
You mentioned the middle of the night, so they come the first night. oh,
The
First afternoon.
So first afternoon, they come back in the middle of the night, what time are we talking?
I believe they came back, they ended up leaving about almost at midnight, so, so at, 10 or 11 at night, when one would suspect that small children would be asleep, and in fact, they were asleep.
And this may be in the complaint, but what are the ages of the children?
Well, at the time, the children were ranging from 2 years old to 6 years old.
I'm just curious why now, because it has been more than a year. Does it usually take that long to?
Yeah, lawsuits generally involve investigation, preparation. The timing is just, basically you're making sure that you're ready to go, that you have done your due diligence. So this is basically when we were able to file.
How did you become aware of the family? Did they come to you and say, we want to sue? How did that come about?
So this incident was publicized when it first happened, and yeah, I mean, we did become aware of their situation, and I'm not sure who contacted you.
Staff contacted us.
Yeah, so we were contacted by the family, and we're very happy to take the case.
The question about the warrants, should they have produced the warrants, in other words, for a situation like this where they're going on immigration action, should they have, when the family asked to see warrants by law, should they have produced them?
Well, we were not sure that they had warrants or not, because they did not show them. I'm not sure whether or not there's any technical duty to produce a warrant, but if you're just taking these actions of busting down the door, shoving guns in people's faces, I mean, at that point, the warrant, what does that mean to somebody who's been terrorized like this? And so I don't know if that would itself be a violation or not, but what they did, whether or not they had a warrant, this was excessive. These were tactics that are not allowed, with or without a warrant.
Has ICE revealed why they went in with such force? Did they think that there was somebody else there that did have a criminal background, or?
We're not sure yet. We don't know.
I would follow up on that answer and say, the Fourth Amendment does protect your home against unlawful search and seizure. And a homeowner is not required to open a door to a law enforcement officer without that individual producing a warrant. So typically what happens is an individual in a home can ask to see the warrants. Officers may hold it up to the window, slide it under the door. At that time, the homeowner may open the door and grant consent. In this case, despite being asked several times to see a warrant, it was not produced, and as John stated, the door was forced open without permission, without consent from the residents.
Because those Fourth Amendment rights are for everybody, right? That doesn't
Regardless
matter
of
what
immigration status. Yeah, that's an important point that we hope this lawsuit also reminds the community and all Americans of, is that the Constitution is not dependent on your immigration status. It bestows constitutional rights to anyone who is in the United States.
One more question. The Univision comment, that struck me. What do you make of that? I mean, what do you think that is an illustration of?
Well, there are several comments that the officers made regarding, you should go back to Mexico, don't be a baby, don't be scared of the cartels. So you'll see there's many sort of references to their, to the fact that they are, Spanish speakers and of Mexican descent. So, we definitely want to look into that and to what motivated those comments. And certainly, during discovery, that is the time to sort of probe that and why the officers thought to say that.
What about comments related to President Trump? You mentioned the one saying that the family was one they wouldn't have much success trying to seek a complaint. Were there other comments made related to the president or changes to laws or ICE enforcement?
That's the one that we're aware of. They referred to Trump's new law, which of course Trump doesn't have a new law. He had an executive order, not a law on immigration. But yeah, that's the one reference that we know to Trump's administration that the officers made directly to the family.
Any further questions? Thank you. We'll be available. Also, you can talk to any of the attorneys individually if you want to follow up one-on-one. Thank you very much.
Thank you.